Before introducing this topic of rail and tourism, there is the Pinwa region goes from the Arctic Circle to the Crow Nation in eastern Montana, including the plains of Saskatchewan. If there is a part of the planet that is more scenic than the Pinwa region, I'm hard pressed to figure out where that is. So consequently, rail and opportunities for rail in tourism are plentiful. From the Amtrak Cascade servicing Vancouver and connecting the Oregon coast and the Salish Sea, to the Empire Builder and Coast Starlight, and we're going to hear from Rocky Mountaineer about their service up in the beautiful Rocky Mountains of Canada and the Intermountain region and Sun Valley and Whistler and all the ski areas, and the fact that the railroads, and particularly in Canada, to bring people to the national parks, they built lodges, magnificent lodges, and chateaus. And so bringing tourism back into the fold in terms of connecting communities for local folks and for folks from all over the world that are used to a more robust passenger rail system, and to relieve pressure on our magnificent national parks, which are sometimes way too many vehicles in Yellowstone, for instance. So to be able to get people on rail to these locations, to vineyards in Walla Walla area, which we'll hear about, is really important, and how we do the bus connections and how we get folks into the national parks is critical. So I'm delighted that Tom has come all the way from New York to talk about how you can put together package tours and talk to our panel about how rail can be an integral part of international vacations. We talked yesterday a little bit about FIFA and the World Cup. We had hosted we being the Cascadia region, we'd hosted the Olympics back in 2010, the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. We're going to be hosting the World Cup, which is bigger than the Olympics and the Super Bowl, in 2 years in Seattle and Vancouver, and then the Salt Lake will be hosting the Olympic Games again. So we have a great opportunity to bring rail into the tourism discussion, and Tom's going to moderate the session and kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Welcome back from your break, and now we're going to be doing the session on tourism, the fun session. No slight to the freight railroads and all that discussion, but tourism is fun. So hopefully we'll have a little fun during this panel discussion. I'm Tom Martinelli. My company is Content Studio New York, and we publish New York by Rail. So I wanted to kind of frame this a little bit, this discussion about tourism and the opportunity for tourism. Why is it so important? Well, so far this year, I think the first quarter, about 73% of the Amtrak ridership was leisure travel. Since the pandemic, leisure is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the Amtrak ridership as the business traveler has not come back. But the leisure traveler is coming back. And why is that? Because they're looking for experiences. And there are plenty of rail experiences to be able to check that box for travelers. So we know that there's an opportunity for leisure. How can rail capture that market segment? Well, I think the name of this session is Preparing the Rural Communities. I think preparation is key. Why is it key? Well, yesterday we heard from Nicole Busich, right, from Amtrak. And she talked about the corridor IDs and said, yeah, we're looking at reinstating the Pioneer. We're looking at other service. But keep in mind, why didn't they work before? So you have to understand that preparation is key. You just can't assume that you have a route. I'm not a big believer in build it and they will come. I think that's partially true. But if you want them to come back, you have to provide a great experience. And that's where the preparation comes in. So a lot of these stops, they're rural communities. I think that's what we're going to focus on during this session. We know there's a big opportunity for rural communities. The economic impact is significant. John Robert Smith outlined that yesterday about Meridian. Meridian's on the Crescent. from New York to New Orleans, right? There's a lot of stops. Why would they stop in Meridian? Well, Meridian prepared for tourists. The railroad station, the community surrounding the station, there was a lot of work that went into that. There's hotels, there's a vibrant art community. They're promoting multi-day visitation. There's a big impact. But some of the smaller communities, I saw a statistic about Cutbank, Montana, right? Which is a stop on the Builder. In pre-pandemic, there was 2,400 people that used that station. There was an economic impact based on those 2,400 people of about $358,000, the economic impact. So we know that there is a tremendous impact, economic impact to these communities. And I think what we want to try to do is to have these stops become destinations so that, they talked about on the long distance service, they don't go from from the beginning to the end. 90% don't do that. So why do they want to select some of those stops in betweens? Well, you have to make yourself ready. You have to be attractive. You have to offer an experience. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit today about. I have a very esteemed panel here. Bill Jenkins from Prosser Vineyard. We have Nancy Jacob joining us via Zoom. And we have Court here from Rocky Mountaineer. So we have a really good, they're going to talk about the product that's available in tourism. And I'm going to kick it off right now with having Bill start us off.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And thanks for being here. This is great. It's something that's been going on for quite a while in the state of Washington. I'm Bill Jenkins. I'm former state legislator in the House of Representatives. And also during that tenure, 2 terms, was a member of the Washington State Tourism Committee. So have a little bit of experience in the tourism aspect. I'm going to be speaking micro and not macro, as Tom alluded to, what the benefit would be to my community and others that are exactly like it. And that's what the whole idea behind this is to incorporate those others. It's been mentioned that tourism is fun, and it certainly is, but it also brings in dollars to those small communities, and those small communities really need those dollars to continue. That's huge, and that's sort of what brought me aboard on this. Excuse the pun. In the communities that there's every small community, big communities have small businesses, and those small businesses right now, as we know, are having a big problem. I have a tasting room downtown Prosser, in historic Prosser, and it's tough. And to get the people to travel, and for the people traveling, of course, are having fun, but they're spending lots of dollars, and it'd be nice to be able to direct those dollars to communities like Prosser. In Prosser, the convenience to something like this is that the rail already comes through there. We've got trains that are coming back from the Seattle area that pass through our town frequently, and a lot of people say too frequently, but that's how it is. But it would be nice if we can make that into an advantage. We have a depot that has been converted now right along the track, right on the edge of historic downtown Prosser. That's now the Chamber of Commerce building. Our historic downtown committee is there, and also our visitor center. So in a community that can offer something like that for passenger railways, it's a fantastic thing. They can get off and learn about the community and then go on their way, maybe spend the evening at one of the hotels in town. And the the big thing is once those tourists get off of the train, they have to be able to get out to where their destination is. In our case, it's the wineries. There's over 30 wineries in the area of Prosser, and there's 12 of them that are within walking distance of each other. I think, and there will be more. There are some that are coming in. So to get those tourists out to those wineries, of course, there's a few in town like mine, but the bulk of them you can walk it, but it's a couple of miles to walk out there, and that's a little bit of walk to a lot of people. So you need some type of shuttle service or some type of way to ferry those people out to those destinations. And in our case, we're fortunate. There's a big lot where Benton Franklin Transit, which is for the Tri-Cities area, is the transportation to get people in that mode. So it would be convenient. So basically, it's ready to go. It's just a matter of getting this off the ground and moving. And those small communities that are like Prosser, they'll have to put some thought into getting those people back and forth to where they're going. I really think that, and it was mentioned in the first session, a very critical thing as far as other communities in Prosser is to be able to get them on a short line. And in the case of the Tri-Cities, there's a very, very good short line, and somebody was mentioning that it runs from Pasco to Wallula. It actually runs out to Walla Walla. And if you can get somebody from Pasco out to Walla Walla, and if they're on a winery expedition type thing, and they want to visit wineries there, Walla Walla has over 120 wineries. They're not in one condensed location, so there would have to be the shuttle service to get them to and from each winery. But I can see how the rail system and what everybody is trying to accomplish, and the Fed too, with the dollars coming in, man, I sure hope the state listens. I hope every state that's involved in this listens. And fortunately today I noticed that there's a representative that I worked with when I was there that is very involved in transportation. So hopefully, if we can get those type of people involved with what we're trying to accomplish, it can get done. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So next I'm going to introduce our next panelists that are joining us virtually via Zoom. And I apologize, so it's Nancy Randall and Jacob Snodgrass from the Albany and Eastern Railroad. They're going to talk about excursion trains. So they're joining us virtually.
Hello, hi.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
This is obviously Jacob. He's the general manager for the railroad, and I'm the director for Stadium Excursion Trains. And so he's going to explain the uniqueness of our company.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell our story here. We represent not unique situation. I think there's a lot of opportunities for other railroads like us out there. We're a short line class 3 handling carrier that operates on 72 miles of railroad. We haul freight 5 days a week, 12 hours a day. And on the weekends, we do excursions. In 2007, during the recession, the current owners bought the railroad. They then invested $32 million into us, and we grew carloads from about 1,500 carloads a year up to an average of 5,500 carloads, sometimes over 6,000 a year. It's time for you, I think.
Yeah, and then in 2014, leadership within our company decided that they wanted to, being very community minded, they wanted to provide opportunities for family tourism, for the opportunity to have kids and young people step foot on the railroad and be exposed to the world of railroading and local history. And so Sandium Excursion was born back there in 2014. So we're just a branch off of the same company. We have to work together. There's a marriage between the two companies. And so we started running trains in 2014. This year, we're looking to run 165 with bringing in about 25,000 people to our community. That's an estimate, but our community is a small rural community in Oregon. We're about an hour and a half south of Portland. So larger communities are we're on the freeway, but they're a distance away from us, and we're about 20,000 people in this small community. We do something a little bit unique. We do not have a coastline. We don't have a big mountain range. Oregon is beautiful all around, but specifically within our area and our county, we don't have any destination location that people are coming to. So we have had to really create an experience. So the train is the experience. And so we've kind of shifted our mindset to providing not only the excursion opportunity, the opportunity to get on a train consist that's antique, but also our train, we do brunches and lunches and dinners, and we host a lot of private parties, corporate companies. We have a waiting list generally for people to rent it for weddings and corporate parties. And so we really make the train the destination. So we get real creative. So our rides this next week are getting turned into a Halloween train, and the entire thing is full of Halloween trains. We do live music on the train. And so we've had to be, like I said, again, creative in bringing people down from those larger communities that are around us. We offer open seating on our train consist. People can explore. So generally there's all the different cars, our bar cars, our lounge cars, outdoor cars. People love to go back and forth. And so we bring a lot of people that come for the uniqueness because they know that the next month is going to be something different. And then, like I said, I mean, we were talking about the railroad company being kind of the parent company. We use the engineers, we use the conductors. We have a train depot right in the center of town. And we own the railroad. So it works really well hand in hand.
Yeah. And for anybody out there who's looking to maybe begin to explore these options, one of the biggest things, we talk about how the train ride is the destination for our type of excursions. The biggest thing is equipment and how you're able to integrate that into your business model. With us, we go for the more antique and historic, which is very common for excursions. And that in itself is a beautiful addition. It's part of the attraction. It also is a challenge that needs to be mitigated as far as maintenance and upgrades go, because a lot of these cars were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they're starting to really show their age. So one of the things that we have found that we like to talk with people about is the maintenance and finding the right people who can help with that to really build into the future.
Mm-hmm. Bringing that to light too, we run diesel and steam. So we have a large set of diesel engines, and then we have a steam engine that does bring a lot of people down to our area. We just actually got another one, and they're beautiful. Santa Maria 205 and the 2.
Polson number 2.
Polson number 2. And then, so that brings a lot of people, but marketing and location, like we hit on, we're not surrounded by wineries. They're not close by. And so we have to, we do a lot of time investing in being creative, and we do have to partner with marketing firms to help us bring these people down. Now, within our ticketing, we do see that we are now pulling people from not only just the larger communities in Oregon. So you've got Salem, Eugene, and Portland on the I-5 corridor, but we regularly have people coming down from Seattle, Spokane, Boise, but they come in from all over. We've had people from out of the country, people from New York, people from all over visiting to come see Sandium Excursion Trains.
No, we don't have a map of the rail uploaded and easy.
Not uploaded.
Yeah. One of the things that was for a topic here was going to be the freight and excursion balance of being able to do both. And it's very important for us that we do both. We have customers who ship, up to 6,000 carloads or more a year. They're very important to the local economy, to all the jobs that they create. We need to make sure that we are supporting them in the best way. And at the same time, we are bringing joy to the community with our excursions. And so we have to strike a balance. For what we do, we've found that in our area, weekends are very big for the excursions and middle of the weeks are not. So we run our freight Monday through Friday, and we do our excursions in the evenings on Fridays up through Saturdays and Sundays. We've got some very popular rides for Sunday brunches and themed rides, and everybody wants to have fun on the weekend. It works out really well for us. One of the things about all that, though, is that you also need to be able to staff and crew all those different trains that we're running, because we run 7 days a week commonly. Very rarely do we not run on a weekend with our excursions. And so striking the balance of, oh, look at that, striking the balance of being able to use your people, your engineers and conductors, your people on the tracks, making sure that everything's good to go. You really need to make sure that you have enough personnel that you can keep everything running, because we're limited to 5 days in a row for our people if they're working 12-hour days, and then they can have 2 days off or 1 day off and go back to work, or 6 days in a row and have 2 days off. So running 7 days a week, the math doesn't always add up if we're not smart about it. Another thing is regulations. When you move from being just a freight railroad to an excursion railroad, we don't have as many additional regulations as, say, Amtrak, but there are additional regulations with the type of cars that you're using and with the fact that you have people on board. It's not overly onerous, but they are there. And then finally, another thing that we have found with the freight and excursion is that people are used to our trains coming through at about the same time, at about the same place every day. When we started adding excursions and these passenger train rides into our mix, we would run 3 or 4 trains a day on the weekends. The community was not used to that. They weren't necessarily ready for it. They also, as they come onto our train, they expect it to be a certain way, whereas we need to show them that we're doing things with historic cars instead of brand new Amtrak cars where we're going from point A to point B. So we found that getting out into our community and communicating has been one of the biggest things that we can do is with our community involvement.
Right. We are really involved in our community. Just as a company, in any kind of local event, we're generally represented. Many of us are on panels or things, because tourism in Lebanon is a small community. So just being creative in how to tie that in with what our town needs and wants, and how to get those people off of the train and to the restaurants. Our downtown is only a block away. Like we're within, a 4-minute walk. And so getting people off of our train into the downtown, into the restaurants. We have a large hotel in town. Many of those people come in and they stay there. So it's really benefited the community. So generally the atmosphere, the attitude is really, really positive. And then it's good for our company. We've got about 12 people. We have young and old. We've got like 5 young kids right now that this is their first time job and they're starting their training next week. And so it's exciting to be able to give those opportunities to people. So
with that, we'll turn it back over. But thank you, everybody, for giving us your time.
Great. Thank you, Nancy and Jacob. In my experience, the excursion trains are very, very popular and a great way to get, tourists to experience a lot of the communities. Next, we've got a giant in the excursion train industry, and I'm going to turn it over to Court Edeburn from Rocky Mountaineer.
Is this on there? I'll just stand here so I can see my PowerPoint, and I know that we all have a case of PowerPoint-itis here, so I include a lot of pictures. And I hope you're not hungry because I have a lot of pictures of food as well. So I'm Cord Edinburgh, I'm the Vice President of Operations with Rocky Mountaineer, and my areas of responsibility are everything on and off the train through our network in Canada and the USA. I look after safety, I look after training, and unfortunately for the Class 1s, I also look after the relationships with them, so they have to deal with me a lot, so are UP. But yeah, I'm just gonna go through this. I'm not sure who's controlling the slide deck? Okay, Tom, so if you wanna go to the next one, I'll give a little bit of an overview of our company. So there's our route maps. So you can see up in Canada, we have 3 routes and 1 route between Moab and Denver. At any given time, you can find 6 of our consists operating throughout these regions. And the really unusual thing about our company is we sort of are one of these things don't belong. One of these things is not like the others. We're not a Class 1, we're not a short line, we're not a commuter service. Arguably, we're not even a railroad. We own about 8 kilometers or 5 miles of track in Canada at our maintenance facility. So we don't really fit into any of these areas. One thing that we do is we are a trip of a lifetime. So we offer an exceptional experience for our guests by world-class food, world-class scenery, of course, and we really spend a lot of time showcasing the areas that we operate in and the communities that we operate in. Do you want to go to the next one? So here's a picture, and I snuck in the food there too. So you can see us traveling along the Colorado River in the top left, massive near Banff, there Rogers Pass, and Grand Junction, Colorado below that. So that picture of the food is actually the opposite angle from where the train is crossing the bridge there. Next slide. So our key network partners, and our company really views this as an absolute partnership. We're sort of a Ferrari on the railroads. So, you know, if a freight is a Toyota Corolla, we might be a Mustang or a Ferrari. Our train consists, while we might have upwards of 1,200 guests on board our trains, they're short. We don't have any overnight accommodation on the train. All of our guests get off the train in a local community and spend their experience in a hotel before getting back on the train the next day. And this is an end-to-end service. So once you're in the sort of Rocky Mountaineer umbrella, we handle your luggage, we handle your motor coach transfers, we handle your excursions. So basically, if you get on the train in Denver, that's the last time you have to touch your luggage. It magically appears in your room before you arrive by luggage truck. And then our motor coaches, our buses, transfer you to your hotel, and then you're free to explore that area. So if you're in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, you have probably 5 or 6 hours to go on excursions, to go, you know, if there's a gondola or art galleries, restaurants, and really experience the town. And it's funny, we did a lot of research on what our guests want to do when they get to a location. Our demographic is generally 60 plus, retired or near to retired, and with a lot of disposable income. So we thought, we'll offer tours, we'll send you up the mountain, we'll do little hikes, and 90% of our guests said they just want to walk around the community and get to know what that experience is like for them. So our network partners, UP, CPKC, and CN, what we really do is we may not be a Class 1, but we pretend we are. So we have an operations center based in Kamloops, British Columbia, and we have another one in Denver, and we hire retired railroaders to man those desks. So they're communicating with the Class 1s, with their rail traffic control, acting like we're a potash train. We don't ask for great privilege on the tracks. We know our position. We know when we can pass, what sidings we can get by on. And like I said, we're fast, we're short, so we can get into a siding, let an Amtrak train go by, or let a freight go by. And when everybody's getting drunk on the train, it's not so much of a big deal if they have to wait a half an hour. We also partner with the American Shortline Railroad Association and the Railway Association of Canada, big proponents of them, and recently we just won the Passenger Safety Award from the Railway Association of Canada for our proactive approach to reduction of incidents. So here's a little summary of our product. So here's Gold Leaf. So this is a bi-level dome that we have 26 of those in operation, and they're a mix of Colorado railcar domes and Stadler. So we had 10 new Stadler cars come in 2019. Beautiful, state-of-the-art equipment. You can go to the next slide. Here's some more food for you. So really, what happens on board this level of service is our guests receive a la carte menu items from chefs on board the train. So you can imagine how hard it is to prepare world-class meals. So our guests, we do a lot of surveys of our guests. Our guests rate our food in the 95th percentile. So 95 of our guests give us a 9 or a 10 on our food, and that's all preparing while going back and forth. So part of my job, I get to sample some of this food, but I also get to pretend I'm a server. I tell you, trying to serve a glass of wine on a moving train is an exercise in futility for me anyways. So we'll go to the next one. So we have our single level domes. This is primarily what we use in the United States. We have 18 of these. And we did want to bring Gold Leaf down to the United States, but the Moffat Tunnel would have made our Gold Leaf car convertible. So we only operate Silverleaf and Silverleaf Plus, which is a lounge car where we have a little bit more laid back. We have more of an upgraded drink menu and some commentary from our team, and really an area just to move around and have more intimate interactions with our guests and with each other. And that's the biggest thing that we do. We have this world-class sceneries, as Bruce mentioned. We have world-class food, we have world-class equipment. One of the things that we don't advertise, and that really everybody who on board our train experiences, is the social interaction that we provide. So we facilitate connections between people. And if you ride on our trains, most of our guests come back with lifelong friends. And really that is our secret sauce that makes us so successful. Next slide. So Silverleaf, much like Gold Leaf, we do have a chef on board preparing meals at your seat. And it is a remarkable service with the glass domes, so you can really get everything out of the Colorado River and that part of the world. So next slide. There's some food. So our chefs, and again, you know, I didn't have this dad bod before I started at Rocky Mountaineer, but having to test all this food all the time it's not great for the waistline, but it's certainly a wonderful experience for our guests. And I want to talk a little bit about our impact and how we affect the communities that we operate in. Next slide. So these are in Canadian. So we contribute, over the past 34 years of operating, over $5 billion to the Canadian economy regionally. You do the conversion, that's what, $170 US, but it is a major contribution. So our annual GDP contribution in Canada is $250 million, and that's direct. That's the stuff that we can measure, that we know that our guests have spent. We bring in over 80,000 guests into Canada. So all of these guests are getting hotel rooms, having meals locally, 50,000 or so in Banff, 35,000 Jasper, and then we do operate through Whistler and Quesnel as well. We've had 25,000 guests on our new Moab to Denver line. So like I mentioned, our guests do purchase, it's not just the train, but they're also purchasing hotel nights in Western Canada and in the US. And we figure, and this is a low estimate, about 140,000 hotel rooms per season directly with Rocky Mountaineer, and the real number is probably closer to the 250 to 300,000 room nights that our guests will spend and purchase in the areas that we operate in. So really what we do is kind of on the line of partnership, is we really use the idea that the high tide floats all boats, and we partner with a lot of local businesses, Indigenous groups, and stakeholders to really provide the best experience that we possibly can. So our guests spend a lot of money at these businesses. We employ a lot of people. So we have about 300 year-round employees, 100 maintenance staff that work year-round in our trains and in all the locations. So we're based in Vancouver, as I mentioned, with the maintenance facilities in Kamloops in Denver. So our local impact, and really how this affects local communities, is we greatly reduce vehicular traffic. So when you take 100,000 guests that would normally arrive by rental car, and you have them arrive by train and motor coach or bus, it greatly reduces that footprint on the communities. In places like Moab, that's really important. You know, traffic is a huge issue for that community, and our guests come essentially on foot So they're walking up and down and exploring, they're not adding to the gridlock that's already happening there. John Roberts said something about place. Our guests really want an authentic experience, so whether it's going to a winery or exploring the downtown, that sense of place is really what makes us successful and makes our guests want to come back. So many of our guests arrive on the Rocky Mountaineer and come back as a future vacation because they felt a sense of place and a connection with that area. Obviously, as we spoke a lot about the environmental impact of rail travel, and we source a lot of our food and beverage locally. So we really want to focus on telling the story of these rural communities or these communities that we operate through. Next slide. So you may recognize this from the news. Jasper is one of our key locations that we operate to. It was the first time in our history that we didn't have access to one of our destinations. So what did we do? We contributed $250,000 Canadian for wildfire relief. We provided employment and shelter for the 45 displaced employees. 12 of our employees lost their homes. We provide valuable intelligence on wildfires. So we not only do we tell the agencies that there may be a fire, but we also move equipment for those agencies as needed. And we spend a lot of time practicing and really advocating for funding. So for us in Jasper, we did not return this year. We felt that it was important for a business like us who brings in 1,000 people a day to wait for the respectful return and really come back at the community's wishes. Just a few of our local partners. And sort of just to wrap this all up, and I apologize for talking so long, I haven't really been keeping track of the time here. But when we spend a lot of time talking about public funding and infrastructure and really supporting that rail network in our communities, we're sort of the cherry on top of that. We don't receive funding, we're not subsidized, but it's really important that that infrastructure exists and is maintained in a safe manner so that we can operate on the Class 1 or the short line railroads that we do. So really want to thank you and thanks for your time listening to me.
Thank you. So you heard about some of the product, and as Bruce had said, there's unlimited product in the Pacific Northwest. I don't think anyone can argue with that. I wanted to talk a little bit about a program that I've been involved with for 20 years, which is New York by Rail, and there's a copy of the magazine at your tables. Can you go to the earlier slides? And probably some of you are thinking, what is this Yankee east of the Mississippi doing moderating this panel? But I see some parallels to some of the things that we've done in New York. So New York by Rail is an official Amtrak magazine. We have a publishing agreement with Amtrak that started in 2004. And the reason that the magazine was started was the marketing director wanted to have a resource that really inventoried the depth and the breadth of the tourism product in his region. He was given Amtrak materials that represented the 50 states, and he couldn't sell his region, which was New York State. So he wanted something that was customized, and that's what we did 20 years ago. Next slide. So we just celebrated our 20th anniversary edition in 2024. We're the only remaining Amtrak magazine left in the network. Next slide. Here's a copy of the cover, which you have at your table. Next slide. So I wanted to look at the map because when I talk about New York, I'm not talking about New York City. Okay, New York City sells itself. You don't need to market New York City and tourist attractions. So the routes that we represent are from New York City north through the Hudson River Valley, the Empire Service, the Adirondack train that goes to Montreal through the Adirondacks, through rural communities, the Maple Leaf, which goes through Western New York into Niagara Falls and Toronto. Again, a lot of rural communities, and also the Ethan Allen Express, which goes into Vermont. It's extended to Burlington. Again, a lot of rural communities. We do have the Lakeshore Limited that comes through New York, but again, a lot of these communities are rural, and the focus of New York by Rail has been on tourism It's really about the why you want to get on the train, why you want to plan a train getaway. So what I want to leave you with is some considerations to attract leisure travelers. Next slide. You know, we heard about the product, and I mentioned before about, you know, build it and they will come, which I believe is only partially true. I think you need to prepare these communities for the opportunity. You have to understand that Amtrak has 550 stops in their nationwide network. Why are they going to select your destinations? Well, obviously, a lot of it is on the product, a lot of it's on the experience. Tourists want a great experience. It begins on the train, but then they're usually going to a destination to continue their experience. And again, a lot of your stops are rural in nature. So in my opinion, you need to make it easy for train riders to experience the tourism attractions. That begins with managing expectations. Look at the endpoints of these routes, Chicago and Seattle, Portland. Those are urban areas, a lot of population. Those people are used to having services, connections, public transportation, subways. They have it all right there. When they come to your communities, you can't assume that they don't know that they don't have those services. These train stations are, you know, essentially by themselves. There may or may not be connections. So you have to manage the expectations. They're coming a long way. How long does it take to get there? It may take a day. It may take 2 days. They need to understand that you know, they need to allow the time, if they're going to get off the train, to have enough time to manage these experiences. So the last mile is so important, the connections from the train stations. You know, you've heard that, and do these stops have connections to get to the final experiences? The national parks, the wineries, some of them may be 60 miles away. The tourist doesn't know that. They think they're going to get off the train and just walk to a national park. That's not reality. You have to educate them. You have to inform them. You have to manage those expectations. You know, are there connections? Is there public transportation available from the station? So I wanted to show you an example. In upstate New York in Albany, there's a public transportation company that has a service called, it's an on-demand service. There was a lot of challenge in Albany, even though it's a fairly large city, of getting to, because the train station's in Rensselaer, New York. It's across the river from Albany. To get to Albany, there was a very difficult experience with taking taxi cabs and getting to the capital. So CDTA came up with this flex service. You download an app, the Ride Pingo app, and it's on demand. They have an 8-person shuttle waiting for you outside the station. So you can be on the train. You can say, I'm getting in on the train that gets in at 12 o'clock, and they'll have this van waiting for you. Now, what's interesting in terms of planning is that a lot of these vans don't make money. I think they charge $8. So you're not going to pay for itself through, you know, the money that you're taking from the tourist. They got a grant from the New York State government that was encouraging this interconnectivity. So a lot of this is a pilot program that's largely funded through New York State. So there are grants available for programs like this, but this is a valuable service and it's very easy for the traveler. Next slide, or actually go back to, so, you know, shuttles. Are there shuttles available? Hotels generally have vans. Are they going to the train station? What about the tourist attractions and the private companies? It's easy to say we're going to get a shuttle, but in my experience, you can't sustain, a private enterprise cannot sustain a shuttle service. They'll start and then they don't make money and then they turn it off. So what you have to be thinking about is how can you sustain that for the long term? It usually has to be subsidized. And I think that's where you need to figure a creative way through grants and subsidies to make it worthwhile to continue those shuttles. If you can get a shuttle, it's great. It's a home run. You get off the train, the shuttle's waiting for you. It takes you to where you need to go. Car rentals. So if you want to click through, so I was working with the New York State Ag and Markets, and I was doing a program for them in New York. They wanted to promote the ag product in New York by rail, but they challenged me and they said, you know, we think this is a great vehicle because a lot of your distribution is in New York City. We want to pull people up to the agritourism product, but there's one problem. How do they get from the train station to the farms to the wineries? So I had to come up with a solution. And what I did was I reached out to Enterprise because I knew that they pick up anywhere. So I said, would you pick up at, you know, the train stations? They said that they would. So we worked out a program with New York by Rail. So we had a corporate rate. You got a 5% discount. And you could actually click through to the website rather than going through the homepage and try to navigate your way to get a rental car, which is impossible. We actually had a landing page. So this is Hudson, New York. It's an Amtrak stop about 2 hours north of New York City. It's already embedded into, it already has, says New York by Rail Amtrak station. And what it does is it pegs you right to the Enterprise because you're coming in, you want an Enterprise. There might be 3 Enterprises. The traveler doesn't know which one to go to. So through this program, you could save money and you could make it very easy. The other thing that we did was we found that the tourists are coming in a lot of times on weekends. Enterprise is closed on Sunday. How do you return the rental car? So what we did at the Hudson station was we got a drop off. So you didn't have to go to the Enterprise, try to take a taxi back to the station. Sometimes that was very difficult. And what we did was they had a couple of designated spots right at the Hudson train station, and then they had overflow in the public parking lot. So you return your car on a Sunday, you dropped it off right at the train station. Makes a big difference for the tourist. You know, biker amenities. You know, bikes on the train. It's definitely a big market. But are you do you have the amenities for the bikers once they get off the train? You know, are there amenities for their bikes? Are there maps? Are there trails? Are there bike racks? You know, is there air available? Right? These are things that you need to be thinking about. I want to talk a little bit about packages, which is very, very important. And I wanted to talk about a program in a rural area, which is Maine, which is called Down East Packages. So this is a state-supported service in Maine. A lot of the tourists are coming up from Boston. And again, it's rural areas. And they work with a tour operator who actually packages what they call car-free packages. And it's broken into destinations. It's broken into package type. So, you know, you can actually plan a trip very easily, but it's car-free. So what the tour operator is doing is bundling the Amtrak ticket, the hotel, and whatever the package is, whatever the entertainment is. So if you're going to a winery or if you're going to shopping, everything is one price point. So this is a tour operator, does about 1,000 packages a year. So it's worthwhile for them because they're working with the Downeaster, which manages the train service, and they're actually subsidizing it. Again, you can't think that all these tour operators are automatically going to come in and want to work with you. They have to make money. Is there enough volume for them to make money? He's doing 1,000 packages a year, so therefore he's got enough volume, but the Downeaster is also subsidizing him. Now he has to work with all those suppliers to be able to get the product. Okay, that means the hotels, he has to get the tickets, he's doing things in Boston. He's going both ways. And it's a lot of coordination, it's a lot of work. So you need to be thinking about working with the travel trade industry. So tour operators are very, very important to try to work with them. You need to partner with your tourism. I can't emphasize this enough, but you need to partner with the tourism industry. Before Nancy was talking a little bit about marketing. You're talking about a long distance route. Who's going to market the long distance route? Generally, it falls under Amtrak, right? Because it's part of their segment. They're going to be marketing all the long distance routes. Why would they single out your route? Well, it's, you need to supplement that. The tourism industry, the state tourism industry, the counties the chambers of commerce. You need to be working with them. You need to be reaching out with them right now and getting them on board. It's not too early. You need to get their buy-in. They're doing a lot of marketing. These rail trips need to be part of the mix. So other partners, biking groups, right? Rail advocacy organizations, All Aboard Washington, we talked about, municipalities, other suppliers. You need to be seeking out partners. I was having dinner last night and talking to Dan from the Big Sky Authority, and it was great because we're having a conversation with Tom Lang about getting to the national parks. He's already thinking about it, and he's talking about the fact that the national parks are having a problem with cars going to the national parks. So we're talking about having, a discussion with the national parks. Why is that good? Because Amtrak already has a program called Rails and Trails. Okay, they put park rangers on the train and they do interpretation and they talk about the history of the regions that you're going through. Right now, the Empire Builder, they get on in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they go to Columbus, Wisconsin. Then they get off the train. But during that time in the cafe car, they're talking about all the history through the regions. You need to be reaching out to the national parks right now to get that program on the train, to talk about the history, and then talk about how do you get them to Glacier National Park? How do you get them to the parks easily? They generally have shuttles. Can they come down to the train stations and meet the train traveler? These are the types of things you need to coordinate in order to make it easy for the train traveler. So, in wrapping up, it takes a village to make this work. And I know I hear a lot of the conversation. You guys are in phase 1 of the Corridor ID. You're doing planning. These are all part of the things you should be talking about. And you are. I think you're so much further along. You have a great opportunity. And I think that you're on, the path to success if you keep on going in this direction. So I think we have time for a few questions. Are there any from the audience?
Yeah, good morning again, everybody. This is Michael Barnbaum from the great state of California. My question, I guess, is about the programs on the Cascades. I don't know if you're able to answer this or someone more from this general geographic area could. Do you have in that route a joint powers authority which has a marketing team that works with marketing and advertising agencies to promote certainties of the route or throughway bus services from the route to the destination? We have very similar thing back in the great state of California with the Capital Corridor, the San Joaquins, and the Pacific Surfliner. One example I can give we've heard quite a bit this morning about the wineries. Napa, Sonoma are not communities directly served by those 3 routes or the JPAs, but they do have an extensive throughway bus network. They have gotten advertising agencies and marketing, so it's part of their overall work and marketing program to promote those destinations and services.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I could answer that. We do not have a joint powers authority like California.
You don't?
No, and in the conference at Boise last year, we had the joint powers authority from the Sacramento, San Jose area come and speak to us. It is an idea that we will be talking with our legislators about these corridor governance structures. I do want to direct a question to Rocky Mountaineer, 2-part question. One, you have the laws in Canada with regard to freight and passenger service are different than the US. You operate with CN and Union Pacific. And in our country, in order for passenger rail service to access freight trains, there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be developed.
what is your experience in Canada, US, in terms of your relationship with your landlord? And two, I noticed on your map, you had Salt Lake listed. Do you have plans to expand Rocky Mountaineer's service? And of course, the Denver to Salt Lake is part of the Pioneer. So do you envision expanding your service in the Intermountain region?
No comment. No, I'm just kidding. One thing I forgot to say too is to thank you, Bruce, and for allowing me to speak today and being a part of this conference. It's been excellent. Yes, the rules are different across the border, but there's a lot of similarities. So we operate as an excursion, so we don't fall under the same legislation that an Amtrak would or BRL would. That being said, we do maintain our railcar fleet to the same standards. So we follow the FRA rules that Amtrak would fall under, and we do everything in our powers to maintain that. As for Salt Lake City, it is something we are currently exploring, and we should have some news on that in the upcoming weeks and months.
I just wanted to mention, you mentioned the throughway bus service with Amtrak.
Yes.
And that's a great because it's a one ticket. So Amtrak will sell you a ticket to a destination, and then they'll have their own bus waiting for you at the train station, and then you take the bus to your final destination. So it's another thing that you probably should be, I realize that you're operator agnostic at this point, but if you are talking to Amtrak, the more throughway bus services that they could offer, it's going to help to get to those final destinations. The other thing is that, so Amtrak does a lot of marketing. So for the long distance routes, they're responsible for generally the marketing. I talked about supplementing it, but you have to understand is that a big advantage with Amtrak is that they have access to all their customer data. And when you work with Amtrak, they're not going to give you that information. They hold on to it. They consider it proprietary. But again, you could market to existing Amtrak customers all over the country, through Amtrak. So that is a big part of the marketing, but I can't emphasize the fact that you need to go beyond that as well to your tourism entities and other partners to supplement the marketing. We have time for one more?
Couple
Okay.
questions
Yeah.
from our virtual audience. For you, Court, do you know what percentage of track utilization is represented by Rocky Mountaineer?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't have that top of mind, but I mean, we are, there's a couple of portions in our network where two trains will cross each other. They'll never follow each other in the same day. So the number would be very, very, very low. And like I said, we pride ourselves in operating like a coal train or a potash train with, luxury guests on board. And so, if capacity is something we talk with the Class 1s about all the time. And our ability to get in and out, to get into sidings, to pull over, to scoop trains is really our advantage. Because again, we don't have that real estate in our consist taken up by sleeper cars, so it's a lot easier for us to do in practice. So very small number.
Thank you. The second question is for our friends at Albany and Eastern, Nancy and Jacob. How many jobs in total, including administration and the rail car engine maintenance, do you all have? How many people do you employ in total?
On the railroad side,
On the railroad side, we have 17 total employees, and 4 of them are mechanical, and they split their time, maybe spend 25% of their time on our excursion equipment. On the Sandy and excursion side, how many people do you have in payroll?
12 employees, they're all part-time, and then myself is the full-time, so.
Question over here.
So I have a question for the Mountaineer. I think you guys actually ran on BNSF back when I was still in Seattle. So what changed with that?
Yeah, it was called the Coastal Passage, and we did it, I think, for two years. And it was really music to my ears yesterday when I heard that there was talk about pre-clearance facilities at Pacific Central. That was really a limiting factor for us on that route. It was really a logistical nightmare trying to get our guests across again, because we didn't fit into any bucket. We weren't Amtrak, we weren't a bus, we weren't cars, we weren't foot traffic. And so we'd get to the Blaine crossing, and And we'd end up getting stuck there for quite an amount of time. It wasn't the experience for our guests that we'd hoped, or for our employees. So that's really ultimately what happened with that route. And we repurposed that Consus down to the Denver Moab route largely, so kind of just moved it around.
So one for Bill, one last question.
Yeah.
Is there popular, broad-based support among the wineries in Tri-Cities and Prosper area for a wine train from Seattle over the Stampede border?
Yeah, definitely, and not only there in the Yakima area, up around Zilla and that, there is talk, and been talking to a few people about that in particular, and I was gonna add a comment to what the first gentleman was asking as far as marketing. A lot of that marketing is done regionally by each area has a tourism board in the area like Yakima and the Tri-Cities. And these boards will do the marketing as well as at the state level. There's committees, there's actually 2 large committees at the state level that will organize, help organize those independent ones in those communities as far as marketing for things such as wineries and that, because wineries in my area is such an attraction.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to my fellow panelists. You could read their full bios in the program, and I'll be around all day. I'm sure these guys will stick around if you have any more questions. Thank you.